just over a decade, Marvel Studios have redefined the franchise movie. Now, how did they go from nearly bankrupt to the powerful global money-making machine in Hollywood today? Well, we need to go back in time. 25 years ago to be exact.
The Chicago Bulls have won the 95-96 NBA Championship. 1996, Vialli and Juventus lift the European Cup.
I need to make a little adjustment just so it's easier to understand. We need to travel back even further. 7 years earlier.
Bill, it was a long time in coming, but you've got a very deserving championship team. Congratulations to you, the Pistons, and the city of Detroit.
So Arsenal dramatically lift the championship trophy. A marvellous title race that went all the way to the last seconds of the season.
Excuse me. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
You idiot! You made me. Remember? You dropped me into that vat of chemicals. That wasn't easy to get over. Don't think that I didn't try.
Okay, cool. Now we can get started. At this time, in 1989, Marvel Comics had essentially neared its peak. People all over were purchasing comic books any chance they could get. Marvel reached financial success thanks to their heavy hitters from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, such as Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men, which at the time they were selling huge numbers. A businessman by the name of Ronald Perlman purchased Marvel Entertainment Group for $82.5 million. He put up $10.5 million of his own money and borrowed the other $73.5 million from the banks. And in just 2 years, he turned a $10.5 million company investment into more than $160 million of cash and securities. Once that happened, he then took Marvel public and onto the stock market. Right after doing that, he sold 40% of Marvel stock for much more than he paid for the company, and Marvel was flying high. Now, here's where things went just a bit left. Ronald decided to buy shares in various companies such as Toy Biz, Panini Stickers, a few trading card companies, and Heroes World, a distribution outfit, which all but doomed Marvel. This cost them a reported $700 million. And now things were about to get worse. Between 1993 and 1996, the revenues from comics began to collapse immensely as the prices were too high for the readers, and so the decline began, which led to something terrible. The comic book market crashed. Hundreds of retailers shut down as the sales dropped a whopping 70%. Due to the investments and the sales dropping, by 1995, Marvel was in serious debt. But this made Perlman start up a new venture, Marvel Studios. He did this in hope of getting all of our favourite comic book characters in the cinema and on the big screen after many years of legal disputes. Just 1 year later, Marvel's market share plummeted from a 70% pre-Perlman down to 25% in 1996. Suddenly, Marvel, who seemed invincible as it grew in size, were now vulnerable. Marvel's stock value went from $35.75 in 1993 to just $2.37 by 1996. Ron proposed a plan to save Marvel from bankruptcy. He made a series of decisions. He sold the rights to the characters to different studios and wanted to merge Toy Biz with Marvel. So due to this, he spent a further $350 million for the remaining shares of Toy Biz. Now, Marvel's shareholders resisted this, believing that the financial damage done to Marvel share prices would just be too great. So Perlman's response was to file for bankruptcy, as he thought it would give him the power to recognize Marvel without the stockholders' consent. An American businessman and known stockholder opposed Perlman, and a long court case ensued. Now, while this was going on, New Line Cinema bought the rights to Blade in 1996. David Goyer was set to write the script, with Stephen Norrington set to direct the movie. They had only one actor in mind to play the part of Blade, and that was the man himself, Wesley Snipes. The Blade movie was released on August 28, 1998, and was the first one packaged and licensed by Marvel Studios and distributed by New Line Cinema, grossing $131 million at the worldwide box office, with Marvel only receiving $25,000 from it. Even though it was a moderate success, this would be the beginning, and it would usher in, as you could say, a new universe. Now let's go back to that long battle royale in court. It's been 2 years and things were finally wrapping up. In December of 1998, the case ended with Toy Biz merging with Marvel and having Perlman ousted in the process, and having Avi Arad and Isaac Perlmutter come out on top and seizing control of Marvel. 2 years later, on the 14th of July 2000, the first X-Men film was released. Licensed by Marvel and produced and distributed by Fox Studios, the movie was a huge success, grossing $296 million worldwide on a $75 million budget. Now, Marvel was depending on this movie's success to ignite other franchise properties. Another 2 years later, in 2002, something no one would have expected had happened. A global success for a superhero film like no other at the time. Enter Spider-Man. Licensed by Marvel and produced and distributed by Sony Pictures, on May 3rd, 2002, the iconic first Spider-Man film was released, starring Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe. The movie grossed $825 million at the box office, with a budget of $139 million. This movie broke records upon records upon records, and was the highest grossing superhero movie of all time at that time. What happened with this movie was unheard of. Even though these superhero movies were financial hits, Marvel received very little profits from these movies. So, in just 5 years, Marvel went from bankruptcy to a market capitalization of $600 million. Stock was at $17 a share. Marvel then realized the real money would only come if they made their own movies with their own properties, but they didn't have the budget to even make them. So, what did they do? They got a loan from the bank of $525 million to use just as a budget for their films, but on one condition. If Marvel failed to make that money back within 7 years, they would have to give up the rights to 10 Marvel characters, including Ant-Man, Black Panther, the Avengers, and Nick Fury. The pressure was on. In 2005, Marvel came over a distribution deal with Paramount Pictures, allowing them with the character rights of Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, and Hulk. Born Kevin Feige on the 2nd of June, 1973, Kevin got his start in the movie industry as an assistant for Lauren Dorner on Volcano and You've Got Mail. He then landed the role of producer in 2000 on the feature film X-Men at only 27 years of age. Impressed by his knowledge of the Marvel Universe, Avi Arad hired him as his second in command. He then went on to produce other Marvel licensed films, such as Spider-Man and Hulk. Marvel then announced their first movie to be produced independently was Iron Man. 1 year later, Jon Favreau was hired to direct the film, and he would make some bold decisions during the process. And one was casting Robert Downey Jr., whose career at the time was just rolling in scandal. It's known that he'd receive a reported $500,000 for his role in the film, with Terrence Howard receiving $4.5 million in his role as Rhodey. So while work on Iron Man began, Marvel made another important acquisition. In 2007, Kevin Feige was appointed as the new head of Marvel Studios, taking over the reins from Isaac Perlmutter. And this is where it all begins. On the 2nd of May, 2008, Iron Man is released to the world, the first ever film released by Marvel Studios, and it is a certified blockbuster hit, raking in $585 million worldwide at the box office. It was a critical and financial success. That same year, The Incredible Hulk was also released, grossing $264 million worldwide at the box office. So in 2008 alone, Marvel made a combined $849 million. Their next and most important turning point though, came in 2009, when Disney decided to purchase Marvel for $4.3 billion. Now at that time it seemed like a lot of money, but in retrospect, it was nothing given the return on investment of the Marvel characters. And from then on, Marvel will continue to release hit after hit after hit. So, let's start from Iron Man. Iron Man 1, $585 million. The Incredible Hulk, $264 million. Iron Man 2, $623 million. Thor, $449 million. Captain America, the First Avenger, $370 million. The Avengers, $1.5 billion. Iron Man 3, $1.2 billion. Thor: The Dark World, $644 million. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, $714 million. Guardians of the Galaxy, $772 million. Avengers: Age of Ultron, $1.4 billion. Ant-Man, $519 million. Captain America: Civil War, $1.1 billion. Doctor Strange, $677 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, $863 million. Spider-Man: Homecoming, $880 million. Thor: Ragnarok, $854 million. Black Panther, $1.3 billion. Avengers: Infinity War, $2 billion. Ant-Man and the Wasp, $622 million. Captain Marvel, $1.1 billion. Avengers: Endgame, $2.7 billion. Spider-Man: Far From Home, $1.1 billion. Black Widow, $378 million. So as of August 2021, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made over $22.93 billion. This doesn't include Shang-Chi or even Spider-Man No Way Home, which will of course increase that total. Marvel is the most successful individual franchise in cinema history, $22 billion worldwide. No other entity has come close to that. Not Harry Potter, not James Bond, not even Star Wars. Nothing has come close. The question is though, how have Marvel kept such longevity and sustainability in Hollywood in terms of movies, finance, and keeping the audience engaged and coming back for more? Here's a quote from the great Kevin Feige himself. "I've always believed in expanding the definition of what a Marvel Studios movie could be. We try to keep the audiences coming back in even greater numbers by doing the unexpected and not simply following a pattern or a mold or a formula. The secret seems to be finding the right balance between creating innovative films and retaining enough continuity to make them all recognizably part of a coherent family. Marvel have continued to dominate Hollywood for over a decade, so much so that if you erase every Marvel studio film, would Hollywood still be pulling in the numbers that it does every year? A company that was in debt 25 years ago survived its darkest hour, and from the jaws of defeat pulled a multi-billion-dollar victory." Hey guys, if you did enjoy the video, please do comment and subscribe if you are new. I'll be back for more very soon. I'll see you guys later.